We all know the story, a farm boy from a desert planet. He looks at the twin suns, he dreams of something more. That boy was me, or, he was the character I played, Luke Skywalker. He was a symbol of hope. He was the light that could push back the darkness. He faced evil, he faced his own father, and he chose the light. But what if he didn't? What if the hero we all counted on made a different choice? What if the galaxy's greatest hope became its greatest threat? It is a scary thought. It is a question that keeps me up at night sometimes, even after all these years. The galaxy held its breath in that throne room. The Emperor was there. He was a master of evil. He pulled the strings. Darth Vader stood there, a machine more than a man. And Luke was there. He was full of anger. He was full of fear for his friends. The dark side was calling to him. It promised him power. It promised him the ability to stop all the pain. We saw him look at his mechanical hand. He saw his father in himself. In that moment, he threw his lightsaber away. He chose peace. But imagine a different path, a darker path, a path where that anger boiled over and consumed him completely. This is the story of that other path. This is the story of a galaxy plunged into a new kind of darkness. It is not just about a bad guy winning. It is about a good guy becoming the monster he fought against. This is about how one choice can change everything. It can change friendships, it can change families, it can change the fate of trillions of lives across countless star systems. The weight of that choice is immense. It is the heaviest burden anyone could ever carry. Seeing that bright-eyed farm boy become a tyrant is a tragedy of the highest order, a story we must explore to understand the true nature of good and evil. So let us go on this journey together. Let us explore the shadows. We will look at the moment where it all went wrong. We will see the consequences of that single, terrible decision. What happens to Leia? What happens to Han? What happens to the rebellion that fought so hard for so long? What happens when the new hope for the galaxy becomes its new executioner? This is not just a story for entertainment, it is a warning. It is a lesson about the darkness that lives inside all of us. And it is a test to see if any light can ever survive when the brightest star goes out. The air in the Emperor's throne room was thick with evil. I could feel it. Luke could feel it. The Emperor sat on his throne, a spider in the center of his web. He laughed. His laugh was like poison. He told Luke about the trap. He told him that his friends were dying, the rebel fleet was being destroyed. Everything Luke fought for was turning to ash right before his eyes. He wanted Luke to feel helpless. He wanted him to feel that anger, that fear, that hate. The dark side feeds on these things. It grows stronger with every desperate thought, every surge of rage. Darth Vader stood beside the Emperor. He was a silent mountain of black armor. He was my father, Luke's father. He pushed Luke. He said things to make him angry. He threatened Leia. He said he would turn her to the dark side. That was the final push. That was the moment everything broke. In the story we know, Luke fought back but then stopped. He saw the path he was on and rejected it, but in this story he does not stop. The thought of his sister, his twin, being twisted and corrupted by these monsters was too much. The love he had for her became a weapon of hate. His green lightsaber flashed, the room filled with the sound of clashing blades, but this was different. This was not a Jedi fighting for peace. This was a son fighting with pure, raw fury. He was faster than Vader. He was stronger. He was fueled by the dark side. He pushed Vader back, step by step. He was relentless. He was a storm of anger. He was no longer thinking about the Jedi way. He was only thinking about protecting Leia. He was only thinking about destroying the man who threatened her. That singular focus, born of love, became his downfall. He cut off Vader's hand, the same hand Luke had lost. Sparks flew. Vader fell to the ground, defeated. The Emperor clapped his hands. He was delighted. "Good," he said. "Your hate has made you powerful." Luke stood there breathing heavily. He looked at his own mechanical hand. He looked at Vader's severed arm. And then he looked at the Emperor. In that moment, he saw the truth. The Jedi way had failed to protect his family. It had failed his father. It would fail him. The only way to have the power to protect those he loved was to take it. He knelt before the Emperor, and the galaxy screamed. The Emperor gave Luke a new name. He called him Darth Caedus. It was a name that would be whispered in fear across the galaxy. It meant a new era of darkness had begun. Luke Skywalker, the farm boy, was gone. In his place stood a Sith Lord. His powers grew stronger every day. The dark side flowed through him like a river. He could move things with his mind with incredible force. He could sense fear from light years away. He was everything the Emperor had hoped for. He was young, he was powerful, he was the son of the Chosen One, a perfect instrument of evil. His personality changed completely. The kind, hopeful young man was buried deep inside. Darth Caedus was cold, he was calculating, he was cruel. He did not smile anymore unless it was a smirk of victory over a fallen enemy. He wore black robes much like his father, but his style was different. It was sharper, more modern. He carried a red lightsaber, its blade humming with dark energy. He was a terrifying sight. He was a constant reminder that even the purest heart could be corrupted. He was a walking nightmare, a symbol of hope that had been twisted into a weapon of despair. The Emperor saw Caedus as his ultimate achievement. He was more powerful than Vader ever was. He was not trapped in a suit, he was not broken by past failures. He was a being of pure, untapped potential, now fully committed to the dark side. The Emperor planned to use him to crush the last remnants of the rebellion. He would be the face of the new Empire, a young, powerful warrior who chose the Empire over the weak and sentimental Jedi. He was the ultimate propaganda tool, a living testament to the power and allure of the dark side. But Caedus was not just a puppet, he was Anakin Skywalker's son. He had his father's ambition, he had his father's pride. He learned quickly from the Emperor. He learned about power. He learned about betrayal. He watched the Emperor, he studied him, and in the dark corners of his mind, a plan began to form. He knew that in the Sith there could only be two, a master and an apprentice, and he had no intention of being the apprentice forever. The galaxy had traded one threat for another, but this new one was smarter, stronger, and far more dangerous. Leia felt the change through the Force. It was a cold wave of darkness. It was like a light in her mind suddenly went out. She was on Endor. She was celebrating the shield being down. But then she felt it. She felt Luke fall. It was a pain worse than any physical wound. She knew, in that moment, that she had lost her brother. Not just to the dark side, but to something much worse. He had become the very thing they were fighting against. The hope she had for him, the connection they shared, was now a source of deep and unending sorrow. Han Solo tried to comfort her, but he could not understand the depth of her pain. Han could not believe it. Luke, the kid, a Sith Lord? It did not make sense. He thought it was an Imperial trick. He thought Leia was just scared. But when the reports started coming in, he had to face the truth. His best friend, the young man he had rescued and fought alongside, was now his enemy. Han felt a deep sense of betrayal. He felt anger. He had opened his heart to Luke. He had come back to help him at the first Death Star. He had risked everything for the kid. And this was how Luke repaid him? By joining the people who had tortured him and Leia? For Han, it was a personal insult, a wound that would never heal. The relationship between Luke and Leia was broken forever. She was the leader of the rebellion. He was the new fist of the Empire. They were now on opposite sides of a galactic war. Can you imagine the pain of that? To know that the person you must defeat, the person you must order your soldiers to fire upon, is your own twin brother? Leia would have to carry that burden every day. She would see his face in her nightmares. She would have to be strong for the rebellion, but inside, her heart would be shattered into a million pieces. The family she had just discovered was torn apart before it even had a chance to be whole. And what about Vader? In his last moments, he would see his son make the same choice he did. He would see his son kneel before the same master who had ruined his life. It would not be a moment of redemption, it would be a moment of ultimate despair. He would die knowing that he had not only failed himself, but he had failed his son too. He had pulled Luke into the same darkness. His legacy would be one of complete and total failure. The Skywalker family, a family that could have brought balance to the Force, would instead become its ultimate poison. With Darth Caedus at his side, the Emperor's victory was, well, swift and brutal. The Battle of Endor turned into a massacre. The rebel fleet was trapped and destroyed. The ground forces on the forest moon, including Han and Leia, were hunted down. Caedus himself led the attack. He showed, honestly, no mercy. He cut down rebel soldiers without a second thought. He used his knowledge of their plans against them. After all, he was their friend, so he knew all their secrets. This betrayal made the defeat even more painful for the survivors. The rebellion was not just defeated, it was humiliated and broken. The Empire was stronger than ever. With Luke Skywalker, the hero of the rebellion, now serving the Emperor, many systems lost hope. They surrendered to the Empire. They saw the fight as pointless. If even Luke Skywalker could join them, what chance did anyone else have? The Empire used this as a powerful propaganda tool. They showed images of Darth Caedus across the HoloNet. They told a story of a misguided Jedi who had seen the truth. They said the Empire brought order and the Jedi brought chaos. And, many people, tired of war, started to believe them. A new order was established. The Emperor and his new apprentice, Darth Caedus, ruled the galaxy with an iron fist. They hunted down any remaining Jedi or Force-sensitive children. Caedus was particularly good at this. He could feel them through the Force. He could sense their light. And he would go to them, not to train them, but to destroy them or turn them to the dark side. He created an organization of dark side warriors called the Inquisitors. They were his personal agents, spreading fear and death across the galaxy. The light of the Jedi was almost completely extinguished, but this new order was built on a foundation of, lies and fear. The Emperor trusted no one, not even his new apprentice, and Caedus, in turn, was already plotting against his master. He knew the Sith rule of two. There could only be one true master of the dark side. He was patient. He was learning everything he could from Palpatine. He was waiting for the right moment to strike. The galaxy was trapped between two powerful and evil beings, and the future looked darker than it ever had before. The peace the Empire promised was the peace of a graveyard. Think about the great moments of the original story. They would all be different now. They would be twisted into something terrible. For example, the celebration on Endor, instead of a happy party with Ewoks, it would be a scene of horror. Imperial stormtroopers would march through the burning forests. Darth Caedus would stand over the captured heroes, Han and Leia. There would be no joy, there would be no victory. There would only be the cold silence of defeat and the chilling sight of a friend who had become a monster. It is a heartbreaking image to even consider. What about the rescue of Han Solo from Jabba's palace? That event showed Luke's growth as a Jedi. It showed his cleverness and his loyalty to his friends. But in this new timeline, that rescue would never happen in the same way. Maybe Caedus would go to Tatooine, but not to save Han. Perhaps he would go to kill Jabba and take over his criminal empire for the Empire. He might see Han, still frozen in carbonite, and simply leave him there as a trophy. Or worse, he might thaw him out just to mock him before imprisoning him again. The loyalty and friendship that defined that moment would be replaced with cold cruelty. Imagine the discovery of the Skywalker family secret. In our story, it was a source of conflict, but also a path to redemption. For Leia, finding out Luke was her brother and Vader her father was a shock, but it created a new bond. In this dark timeline, it would be a weapon. Caedus would use this secret against Leia. He would taunt her with it. He would tell her that the darkness was in her blood too. He would try to use their family connection to break her spirit, to make her feel hopeless and alone. The beautiful, powerful connection between the twins would become a tool for psychological torture. And what of Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi? Their Force ghosts would watch in sorrow. They had placed all their hope in Luke. They had trained him. They had believed in him. To see him fall would be their greatest failure. They would try to reach out to Leia to guide her, but the galaxy would be a much darker place. Their voices would be like whispers in a hurricane. The legacy of the Jedi, which they had tried so hard to preserve, would be in greater danger than ever before. Their last hope had become their greatest shame, a painful reminder of how fragile the path of the light truly can be. In the throne room of the second Death Star, Darth Vader lay on the floor. He was broken. His hand was gone. His son stood over him, not with pity, but with a cold, terrifying power. The Emperor was laughing. He was telling Luke to kill his father. "Take your father's place at my side," he hissed. In the story we know, Luke refused. He chose to be a Jedi, like his father before him. But here, Darth Caedus looked down at the pathetic man in the black suit. He did not see a father. He saw a failure. He saw a weak old man who had let himself become a slave. Vader looked up at his son. Through his mask he could see the yellow in Luke's eyes. He could feel the cold, raw power of the dark side flowing from him. It was a mirror of his own fall so many years ago. He had wanted to rule the galaxy with his son, but he had not wanted this. He had not wanted his son to become a puppet for the same monster who had destroyed his life. In that moment, Vader felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt regret. He saw the full circle of his tragedy completed not in his redemption, but in his son's damnation. The Emperor ordered Caedus to strike the final blow. "Fulfill your destiny!" he screamed. Caedus raised his green lightsaber. For a moment, there might have been a flicker of the old Luke, a moment of hesitation. but the dark side was too strong, the promise of power was too great. He saw Vader not as a person, but as the final obstacle, the last piece of his old life that he needed to destroy to be truly free. He saw him as a symbol of the weakness he now despised. He believed killing him was a necessary act to become who he was meant to be. With a final, swift movement, Caedus struck down his father. Darth Vader was dead. But there was no redemption. There was no father saving the son. There was only a son killing his father to take his place. The Emperor was overjoyed. He had finally destroyed Anakin Skywalker completely, using his own son to do it. As Vader took his last breath, he would not see his son with his own eyes. He would die in darkness, knowing that he had failed to save anyone, least of all the boy who carried his name. The Skywalker legacy was now one of patricide and darkness. The Rebel Alliance was shattered after the Battle of Endor. Their fleet was gone. Their best leaders were captured or killed, and their greatest symbol of hope, Luke Skywalker, had become their most feared enemy. The news spread like a virus across the galaxy. Morale plummeted. Many rebel cells disbanded. They felt that the fight was over. If the son of Anakin Skywalker, trained by Yoda himself, could fall, then what hope was there for ordinary soldiers and pilots? The dream of restoring the Republic died in the fire and wreckage above the forest moon. Leia Organa, along with a few survivors like Han Solo and Chewbacca, managed to escape. But they were now fugitives in a galaxy that was more hostile than ever. They were hunted relentlessly by Darth Caedus. He knew how they thought. He knew their tactics. He could anticipate their every move. It was a desperate, terrifying game of cat and mouse. Leia had to become a different kind of leader. She could no longer lead a grand alliance. She had to lead a small, desperate resistance. She had to fight not just for freedom, but for the very soul of her brother. The galaxy entered a new age of Imperial rule. It was an age of fear and silence. There were no more open rebellions. There were only whispers in the dark, small acts of sabotage, hidden bases on forgotten worlds. The Empire, with Caedus as its enforcer, was ruthlessly efficient at crushing any dissent. Stormtroopers were on every street corner, Imperial spies were everywhere. To even speak of the rebellion was to risk death. The galaxy was a prison, and Darth Caedus and the Emperor were its wardens, ensuring no one ever dreamed of freedom again. The fight for freedom became a much longer, much harder struggle. It was no longer a war between big fleets. It was a war of spies and secrets, a war of hope against overwhelming despair. Leia Organa became the keeper of that hope. She had to believe that somewhere, deep inside the monster known as Darth Caedus, her brother was still alive. She had to fight not just to free the galaxy from the Empire, but to redeem the one person she should have been able to count on the most. The path was dark, and the chances of success were almost zero, but she had to try. This dark story shows us a terrible possibility. It shows us how fragile hope can be. It shows us that even the best of us can fall. Luke Skywalker, our hero, became a villain. He made a choice born from fear and anger, and that choice plunged the galaxy into a new night. It is a sad story. It is a tragic story. It reminds us that the path to the dark side is not always a big, dramatic decision. Sometimes it is a series of small choices. A little bit of anger here, a little bit of fear there, until one day you look in the mirror and you do not recognize the person staring back at you. But even in this darkness, there is a lesson. The story of Darth Caedus is a warning. It tells us to be careful with our emotions. It tells us that love can be twisted into hate. That the desire to protect can become a desire to control. It shows us the immense responsibility that comes with power, whether that power is the Force, or just the power to influence others. The story of Luke's fall is a powerful reminder that we must always be vigilant. We must always check our motivations. We must always choose the path of compassion and understanding, even when it is the harder path to walk. The most important message here is about choice. Luke Skywalker was not destined to be a hero or a villain. He stood at a crossroads and he had a choice. In the story we love, he chose light. In this dark tale, he chose shadow. But in both stories, the choice was his. No one forced him. The Emperor tempted him, Vader pushed him, but Luke made the final decision. This is true for all of us. Every day we face choices, big ones and small ones. And each choice defines who we are. We are the architects of our own character. And so, even in a galaxy ruled by Darth Caedus, hope is not completely gone. It is smaller. It is quieter. It lives in the heart of Leia Organa. It lives in the loyalty of Han Solo. It lives in every person who refuses to bow to tyranny. As long as someone is willing to make the right choice, to choose light over darkness, to choose hope over fear, the fight is never truly over. The darkness can be powerful, it can seem overwhelming, but a single candle can defy the darkness. And that is the enduring legacy of Star Wars. It is the belief that no matter how dark things get, the choice to be a light is always within our grasp.